Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. Today we welcome Michelle Boulé. Michelle is a transformational life and business coach, healer, and dancer who helps creative executives and entrepreneurs all over the world clarify and manifest their visions with more confidence, impact, and alignment towards their truth. She's the founder of Michelle Boulé Coaching, offering online group programs, private coaching, speaking, teaching, and in-person retreats. Her uniqueness comes through her in humor, creativity, play, and everything she's learned from her award-winning international career in dance. Her work also draws from over 25 years of practice in somatic therapies, energy medicine, mindset psychology, and spirituality. Michelle has been featured in her Money from Jean Chatzky and has appeared on Bloomberg Radio, KTLA, and many more. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Yes, welcome, my dear. We can't wait to dive into this conversation because I know it's going to be fabulous.
Yes.
So, wow, you have been more than a busy bee.
Yeah, I have. I can't seem to stop, but I enjoy it.
So, tell me how all this began for you.
So I started dancing when I was 5 years old and kept with it until I got pretty injured a couple times in my teenage years. But I think at the root of all of this work for me is I experienced this as a dancer, this feeling that there's something greater that wants to move through us. And I think I also experienced this, being raised with a religious practice too. But then as I started dancing and opening up to that and actually getting injured, right? It was like getting off track that led me to be more and more on track. When I started getting injured, I had to look at different ways of using my body in a more holistic way. So that introduced me to a lot of different somatic modalities, the way those relate to our psychology. And then also energy medicine when I got injured again in my 20s and 30s in New York, and starting to look at that way of how we perceive our reality and our bodies. And then from there, with this constant desire that started, probably when I was like 7 years old, to allow for something greater to move through, I started actually studying prosperity and a spiritual approach to that. And it moves me to say that because I think it's actually something that we're not taught how to manifest, to create, how to work with that, and to allow money, which is just an energy and a resource, to be another force that flows through us. And we get to choose what kind of good we can create in the world from that. So all of this really started as like, what greater wants to show up right now? How can I support this information, in dancing, it was movement, this inspiration that wants to be shared with other people. And I took it through dancing, through energy medicine, and now into prosperity to help people in my coaching platform.
Wow. That's a huge connection there. Definitely is. So when you talk about prosperity, let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what that's about.
Well, I think it's really about knowing that you can create the prosperity that you want. And my mentor says something that can be very triggering to people, which is that everyone has access to the same amount of money on the planet. They just aren't aware of it. And that's the thing, right? Like there's so much ignorance that we don't know how we can actually create the possibility. For me, prosperity is just being able to live your life the way you want to live it, and to know that you can actually create it. Because I think one of the biggest things that causes fear and anxiety for people is that we don't understand that we actually have the resources to be able to create the prosperity in our, our own economies that we want to. The animals in nature are not worried about this. Like, they're like, I need some nuts for the winter. I'm going to go get them, the squirrels, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, do I deserve this? Am I worthy of this? Are there enough nuts? They're just out there doing their thing. And I think if we, what's fascinating is prosperity can be an entry point, but what we're really looking at are spiritual truths, which I deeply believe in, that the world is abundant and that we are abundant and powerful. And that when we start to tap into that alignment, so much more is possible. And really, all that is we're living into our potential, just like anything in nature. It wants to express itself fully. So we as humans, one of the resources we have the opportunity to learn how to connect to is money, right? Because that's what we use right now, besides air and water, which are free, to be able to create what we want. But there's so much taboo around it. There's so much misunderstanding around it that it can be difficult for people to step into prosperity.
Wow. That was a mouthful there.
Just stop me when you need me to stop.
No, it's really something that people need to simmer on, because we do put too much into it. I mean, like you just said, the squirrels, they already know what they got to do. I got to go get my nuts. I got to hide it from the rest of the squirrels. And you made me think about, I have this squirrel that visits me every day. I've got this box on the porch, and he's been hiding his nuts behind this box.
Yeah.
He looks at me, he's like, can I do this? And then he goes on and puts the nut behind the box. And I'm like tickled to death.
What's amazing though, Ida, too? If like that box disappeared or all those nuts disappeared, it wouldn't freak out, right? It would just be like, okay, where's more nuts? I'm going to do this.
Right.
And we face these obstacles and we get really confused rather than just simply like, here's the task. The world is abundant. I know it's here. What's the next thing I need to do?
Absolutely.
And that's so much of it, is that we don't believe that the world is abundant, even though we see it all around us. Like you mentioned, air and water and sunshine and rain. Even dirt is abundant, but we don't get that. We don't look at the grass and say, "Oh, it's abundant. It's growing. It doesn't need me to tell it what to do. It's abundant. It's here." But we don't see abundance. The only way we see it is in our bank account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when that's not abundant, all of a sudden there's no abundance. That's where our mind goes to. We go to a freak out lane.
Yeah. And some of the thing that I find when a person is able to really transform is that you stay in that belief and in that faith, which faith is action, right? Like belief is knowing it's here. Faith is the action, even if the external circumstances are not showing you that it's here.
That's right.
Right. That's when we go into that realm of creation beyond our immediate senses and we tap into possibility, not looking at my bank account and being like, oh my God, it's not here. It's like, okay, I don't see it here right now, but I know it's here. What do I need to do next?
It's available. It's available to me. It's coming to me. If I will let it, it's coming to me.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a whole different way of thinking. And we're not, like you said, we're not taught.
Yeah. So, and when I first started studying this work too, I did this little exercise with myself of literally, I had to start training my mind to see abundance. So I can't remember, I was like in different places traveling and, I was on the West Coast, everything was flowering at one point. And I would just take pictures and be like, thank you. Like, look at this abundance, like seeing it in the trees and in the flowers. It's just, it really is. But like you're saying, Ruth, we haven't trained ourselves. We haven't been given that tool to really perceive the world in that way. And when we perceive the world in a certain way, we start to create it in alignment with that perception.
That's kind of interesting because children see abundance. And, to them, the world is just, it's amazing. It's just something to be explored and everything is new and wonderful. But as we get older, we are literally we're taught that there's not enough. So there's a fight for the job. There's a fight there's all the competitions that we get into as we get older, trying to get what we need, but we don't know that there's more than enough for everybody. I know someone has the example that, life is like, there's so much abundance. It's like the ocean. You can go with a thimble. Yeah, you can get a thimble full, but you can also back up a truck with a hose, with a suction hose, and get all the abundance you want, and there would still be enough.
Yes.
For everybody else.
Absolutely. We got a shout out from Yinka. Hi, my dear. Training the mind to see abundance. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next question. How do you train the mind to be abundant?
I have one thing I want to share too in response to what you were just talking about, Ruth. Like, first of all, that exercise of just literally seeing it, being grateful. Like, I got $100 in my bank account, or I got $1 million in my bank account. It's like, I'm so grateful for this.
Yes.
That gratitude. But also, I think one thing that's so key, and I was hearing this, Ruth, as you were saying, like, we try to get and get and get. Abundance comes through giving. It's like the grass is not like, what can I get from the dirt? What can I get from this person walking by? They're just like, I'm here. I'm reaching down into the earth. I'm reaching up towards the sky. I'm giving fresh air. I know the tree's not thinking this. It's just doing this, right? Like, it's constantly giving and constantly receiving. So I think the thing that we start to do is we think, okay, there's not enough. I can't quite give this. Maybe, and it gets rooted. It starts with, I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, that's a big thing we learn. So part of, part of training in abundance is also, I got this exercise from my coach early on. He said, take out a bunch of $100 bills and start tipping people $100 bills. And I was like, okay. What that is, it's like, it's a practice and it's coming. Like, I'm going to give this to the person. What's fascinating, I remember I bought a tamale in Queens on the street, and I gave the woman $100 bill, and I'm like, es un regalo, like, it's just a gift. And she was shocked, but like, it was so cool to be able to give in that way, and then just walk away and not receive receive anything in return. Also, it's non-linear. Where what you give to, what you get back from it, may not come from that source, and there's a universal law for that. So, I think there's also those quotes around, if you want to give if you have $1 or $100, which one would you give? Like, give the 100, because you're going to get back. You're going to get that 100 back in that trust and in that faith. And yes, like, as Ida and I, we were talking about this earlier before we went live, like, there is action that needs to happen, right? Like, you also need to set up a channel to receive.
Yes.
Offer a service and set up a channel to receive for that service.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things I saw on your bio, your goal is not that important at all. Can you please speak to that?
Yeah. Well, a goal is very important in giving a person direction. And I am very right-brained. I'm super creative. And so sometimes for me, it can be hard to pin down the goal and say and claim this is what I want. And, it's not only being right-brained, it's also saying, you know what, I believe I'm worth this. I believe I can do this. And that goal gives your life direction. So it is important. But the thing that's even more incredible as you're going for that goal is the whole process of what you get to learn and who you become, because that's what's essential for being able to manifest that goal in actuality. Right. So if we're not paying attention to that process and everything we're learning, first of all, it's going to be very difficult to get to the goal, and it's going to be very difficult to repeat it. Right. Because there's so much that we have to integrate to be able to, go from where we are to whatever that next level is. So in part, it's just like, wow, the richness of this journey, knowing you're going to get challenges, roadblocks, you're going to face fear, doubt, and worry. But in that process, how do you build yourself up to be the incredible container or the conduit for this goal that you're trying to manifest?
Wow. Wow. We got another shout out from Yinka. So insightful. Yes, this is. And we need to hear stuff like this often.
Yes.
Because we get caught up in the movement, just the day-to-day movement that we don't take time to really think and simmer on what's going on around us, what's going on inside of us. So this is amazing, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could you, I have a quick question. Well, it's not going to be a quick question. I just wanted to ask you, because you're a transformational person, that's what you do, you're a transformational coach, and you do a lot of your work based on the universal laws. Could you run through the universal laws very quickly for us? Because many people aren't aware that there is such a thing,
Yeah.
and don't know what they are.
Yeah. So I'll say, if you were to Google this, you'd find a lot of different takes on what the universal laws are, or how many there are really.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, these are laws that govern how the universe operates. And they're present in every science and every, the ancient spiritual texts. And just if a person learns how to work with them, know what they are, and then work with them, there's a real alignment and a trust to be able to know, this is actually what's required to create something that you want. And all you have to do is keep stepping up into the next step that presents itself. And you can use those laws in times of, well, I'll say this, because when we're growing, we're always having to step into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
The universal laws don't change. So they're this great foundation of understanding that a person can use as long as they choose to live by them, to make sure that you can step into that unknown and actually with confidence, with faith, and knowing that what you want is here. So I can say, I can say a couple of the ones that I work with primarily, which are the universal law of perpetual transmutation, the law of polarity, the law of cause and effect. There's subsidiary laws in there that I like to work with, like the law of sacrifice. That's not one of the 7 main ones, but there's also the law of gender, the law of vibration. I'm forgetting a couple in here, but those are, at least a couple to start with, which I bring into my coaching so that a person starts to set up a new paradigm in their mind for how to perceive the world. And once we get a new paradigm, that means we're open up to new possibilities as well.
Okay, so now that you've gone through that, and we look at the laws of the universe, you brought us to the next step, is how to apply those laws to the paradigm in which you happen to be currently in, that you want to move out of to get to your next level. So could you talk a little bit about that and what a paradigm is and how we apply all this?
Exactly. Yeah. So a paradigm is actually a way of perceiving or thinking about the world. And how this develops is prior to the age of 7, we don't have a conscious mind. We're just in a brainwave state where we're just absorbing everything from all the authorities around us, parents, teachers, clergy, aunts and uncles, everything. We can't reject it. So if we're born into a family or a culture that says money is bad, or going too big, you're never gonna make it. The world is taking things away from you. Not being the right skin color makes a difference in what's possible. All those things become our programs and our paradigms, right? So then let's say a person says, you know what, I actually want to make more money. But their paradigm, which is running in the subconscious mind 95% of the day, is saying people who have a lot of money are bad. They're taking it away from you. You're not smart enough, whatever those paradigms are, right? So what we can do, first of all, before I go into how to apply the laws here, what I always ask a person is, what do you want? Because that desire that only you know is your compass. It's related to what you're here to experience. Desire means of the spirit or of the Father. Right? So you're taking that higher calling, listening to it, and then how do you step into bringing that into your life? So let's say a person desires to start a business. One of the universal laws we can use is this law of perpetual transmutation, which essentially is that energy is, and it's constantly flowing from non-form into form, back into non-form again. It's always doing that. So the pivot point or the deciding factor in what determines what happens with all of that potential energy is you and everything that you believe. So when you start to train your mind to think in a different way, I'm worthy of this, it's possible for me, you create a very different result with that, all that potential energy that's flowing to and through you. And that's what I was talking about as a dancer. And as a child, I experienced this. I was like, there's something much greater here. Okay, I'm part of this creative faculty, this creative energy. So there's that law. The law of polarity states that everything is created as a whole, and you can't, if you can't have just half of something. So the way I use this with my clients is I train them to know there is always a solution to the problem, right? You can't have a problem without a solution. So if a person says, I want this, and all they're seeing is the problem, I'm like, okay, look, we know there's a solution here. Let's focus on that. Here we bring in the law of cause and effect, right? You start thinking differently. You become the cause of a different effect. And then you start taking action differently in alignment with that desire. You become the cause of the effect. It doesn't happen until you start shifting that cause. And if it's not too much, can I bring in one more law here?
Absolutely.
So this subsidiary law, which I like to talk about, I'm actually doing a workshop on this next week, is the law of sacrifice. So this law essentially states that as you go for something of a higher nature, you have to sacrifice something of a lower nature, right? So that can be a paradigm, a belief system, right? So as you're reaching for this goal, there will be something you need to let go of, right? Sometimes it can be thinking that the money is actually what keeps you safe. So maybe a person who's thinking that they won't want to invest it in their growth. That's not true, right? Like we look at what we're losing more than what we put our faith in towards what we can potentially gain.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a cause and effect too, right? If we're always focused on what we're losing, we're never open up to that unknown, incredible, infinite potential of what is possible, which I know every single human being, if they give themselves the permission to listen to that, the doors will start to open up. Then it's about having the courage to take the next step. And that's that moment of truth, right? Like the opportunities are here. Are you going to take the next step? Are you willing to continue on the path? And also know, yes, there are going to be challenges, but the only reason you can imagine that goal is because it's possible. So being willing to keep stepping. All right. I think that's enough for now.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was very
Thank you for that.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad
That
I
was
helped.
very fine. Yeah.
So how do people connect with you?
You can go to michelleboulé.com. At the page there, we have a free resource that changes. There's two there, where you can download a free resource, use it. It's either a 15-minute audio practice or this fantastic PDF. And I'm so sorry, I can't remember what we just changed the name to. I think it's the Creative's Guide to More Clarity, Confidence, and Income. But go there, download one of my free resources at michelleboulé.com. You can also go to Facebook or Instagram, maybe Instagram, michelle.boulé is my handle. But, take your choice as to which social media platform you prefer.
Yes, this is definitely something that to simmer on, I always call it. After this is over, people will think about everything that you just said and really wonder or even really want to begin to apply it. Because like you said before, you have to give to get. Giving is spontaneous. You just give without even thinking about anything in return. You just do it. And when you said that, I thought today, somebody called me. I was in the middle of doing a move of computers and stuff. And somebody called me because they couldn't get into their email on their phone. Immediately, I just started helping them. I didn't think about it. I just started helping them. And that's how giving works. Yeah. You don't think about it. You just be about it.
I agree. Yeah. And then I think there's also, because I've definitely had to work on this with some of my clients, is they're giving from a reactive place, and they're people who want to just keep giving, but they don't have that channel open to receive. Right. It's almost, so I think that we've kind of touched on that a little bit too. The quote, "Do not toss your pearls before swine."
Yes. I heard that many times.
I mean, it's been amazing as a business owner to really let that one register. It's that when we were talking about this again before we went on live, like, a person has to want the support.
Yes.
Right. Like, otherwise you're just tossing your gold everywhere. So when there's that alignment of, the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
Like, that's when that magic starts to happen. There's the student is ready to give their time, their energy, their resources. The teacher or the guide, right? I want to say almost like the guide is presenting the opportunity, because, having taught for such a long time, I think one of my favorite things in quote unquote teaching is showing a person that they are their own inner teacher, that all that wisdom is within them. And it's just about discovering it within oneself as you start to experience the world, right? As you go out and try things, not just sit with your book and read everything and think about it. It's like, okay, go out there now and try it and screw up and learn and let that knowledge turn into wisdom.
Yes.
That's so, I thank you for sharing that, because I think many people get to a point in their lives where they feel that, oh my goodness, I've done this, this, and this, and this didn't work, and that didn't work. But what they don't see is that it's that life experience. The biggest mistakes that we have made in life are often the ones that we can teach from, and someone else can benefit from.
And also I think one of the things that I really practice and live by, because I know, that truth, that moment of truth shows up, like, okay, I know this is the next step. So one of my mantras or prayers has always been to ask for the courage to keep stepping.
Okay. You said it earlier that once we say yes, the doors start to open.
They sure do. It's that, you make a decision, right? A commitment. People are like, sometimes clients would say, or people I'm talking to, well, I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. I was like, you haven't fully made the decision that it's going to happen.
Right.
When you make that decision and you close the door behind you and burn the bridges or whatever you want to call it, then it starts to show up, because God, the universe, spirit sees like, all right, she's all in. She's not joking now. Let's do this.
Yeah. The things.
Yeah.
I love talking with you. I would love to hear a couple of hours of conversation with you. This is really encouraging and so much in alignment. I want you to know that sometimes we meet people at just the right time.
Yeah.
And it's an affirmation, confirmation.
Yes.
Of where we are. And I hope that's true for our listeners, our viewers, that for some of them, this is a moment of alignment and being able to say, this is exactly what I needed to hear, because this is exactly where I am. So.
Absolutely. Yes. This has been amazing, Michelle. Again, how do people connect with you and get involved?
Go to michelleboulé.com, click on the free resource that's available there, download it, check your email, make sure it shows up in your inbox, or email me at info@michelleboulé.com. And also Instagram @michelle.boulé, and Facebook, you can just find me under Michelle Boulé.
We appreciate you, Michelle. Thank you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for doing this work and for having me on as a guest. It's a real honor.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.